Welcome everybody to this presentation on a very key component of the BigBlueButton ecosystem. We have lots of deep integrations with learning management systems, but there are many more out there that use learning tools interoperability. And so BigBlueButton has a core part of the project, a supported LTI integration. Introduce Mariam Almalki and Jesus Federico, the two principals on the BigBlueButton LTI project. Over to you.
All right, welcome everybody to this presentation. So as Fred mentioned, today we're going to be talking about how you can embed BigBlueButton in learning management systems using the LTI standard. So I'll begin by introducing myself briefly. My name is Mariam. I'm a software engineer, and I've been with Blindside Networks for 1 year now as a full-time employee, but then I was a co-op student for about another year. And throughout these 2 years, I've mainly been working on this LTI project. So for those who don't know, Blindside Networks actually started the BigBlueButton project in 2007. And since then, it's been working on maintaining and developing this project, but also developing products and services that facilitate the usage of BigBlueButton in different situations. And so you may have seen some of these products and services in previous presentations. There's certainly Greenlight and Scalelight. BigBlueButton Docker is a repository full of Docker images. BigBlueButton install is a script, a bash script for installing BigBlueButton. And using BigBlueButton install, you can actually install Greenlight and LTI as well. And then there's the LTI apps. That's the focus of this presentation. And the LTI apps are a very important component of the BigBlueButton ecosystem. So that's what we're going to cover today. Now, what are we really going to cover in this presentation? So first, we're going to go into a little bit of background information on the project. So what is LTI, and how has our LTI project evolved over time? This part will be presented by Jesus. I'll let him introduce himself afterwards, but Jesus has been with Blindside Networks since the inception of this project, so he's really the best person to give us insight into its history. And then we'll take a look at the current LTI project. So what functionality it offers, how to install it, and how it's delivered. And then I'll walk you through the high-level architecture of our solution. I won't go too much into the technical details in this presentation, but this section is really to give you more of an idea of the different components in our solution and how they work together. And I'll explain why that's important as well. Finally, we have the roadmap for this project. So I'll explain what it is you can look forward to in the future. And of course, we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. Without further ado, I'll pass it on to Jesus.
Thank you, Mariam, for the introduction. And yeah, well, as Mariam said, I feel older now, and no better than the old guys to tell stories. And that's, as I mentioned in one of the old presentations, that's what I am going to do. Not going to get much into the details and the history of the projects, but we'll touch some. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jesus Federico. I have been a part of the BigBlueButton project since 2011. I joined the project at the beginning of the year, and I joined Blindside, and it was like in the summer. This has been 12 years. Since then, I have been working on integrations mainly, touching some other components, but I have a lot to do with all things that connect to BigBlueButton or make use of BigBlueButton, the data that comes out, etc. And so with that, I'm going to go back to the, first I need to take presenter. Yeah, I'm going to go back to this first slide, just to talk about the import of having some applications. As you might remember, BigBlueButton it can be seen and perceived as the application that you see right now, the one that we are using, which is great, right? Is what is letting us, it's the virtual classroom, is what is letting us have this conversation, this communication. But there's one step before that, and is getting into BigBlueButton. BigBlueButton by design didn't have a portal or an entry point portal or user interface, front-end user interface until green light came to light, 2016 probably. So before that, it was required to have integrations with the mainly the LMSs. The LMS was the main source for applications to come. Some people develop portals, but it was LMSs. And I'm gonna go back to here. So the LMSs are a critical component in the way students and teachers use BigBlueButton. We have many great integrations, as you might have heard from the previous presentation we had on Moodle. Moodle is the deepest one we have, but there are others. We have Sakai. We have there is a Canvas integration as well. There are others. Gensabar has its own. Schoology has its own, etc. It's obviously easier for us to collaborate and work with those who are open source projects, and that's what we have been doing. That's why the Moodle one is deeper than I will say Sakai. We could work with an XBlock for edX. It's not that easy, but we could do it as well. And in a way, we have been collaborating with Canvas. But what do you do when you don't have access to the code, the code base, or you cannot even have a way to create plugins, like in the case of Brightspace? Well, you have to go to something else. In this case, that is LTI. LTI comes from a standard developed in 2010. It stands for Learning Tool Interoperability, and it was developed or created by IMS. The why what is IMS escapes right now from my mind, but it's the organization behind all these nice standards for education, for technology in education. There are many others. So LTI is one of the the critical ones, and that is because it let us bring tools into the LMSs. So the way LTI works is essentially LTI 1.0. There has been a sequence of versions as well. LTI 1.0 since release, it was essentially a mechanism for doing a single sign-on into the applications. So the way it works is you create a link in the LMS, launch into they call the launches, launch into the external application, and that content or functionality is shown to the user through an iframe in the LMS, and it looks like if it was the LMS for non-technical users. It was based or is based on Auth 1.0, and it has been used and is still being used after 13 years of its inception. Is still being used as the prime way of consuming tools, external tools. Then it came LTI 1.1, which is an extension of 1.0, just with the same mechanisms, the same launches mechanisms, just with the extension of allowing outcomes services. In this case, grades. That was the first and only thing that was at least originally implemented. Then it came LTI 1.2 that led to 2.0, but we don't talk about 2.0. Say anyone that I say that. Not even mention the number. No, 2.0 was an attempt of doing 1.2, then become 2.0 was an attempt of doing things differently. Was a new. It was a new mechanism, a full new protocol, but it ended up being so complicated that more secure, more robust, but not many tools or tool consumers, which is how the LMSs are called, implemented in the first place. So it took some time for its adoption, and with all this complexity, well, it was pretty much dropped, and the idea of 2.0 went back to 1.2, and then from there came to 1.3. And 1.3, what we have now, and what is what we use, but we have not seen much adoption until probably, what is it, 2018 maybe. And in the last 5 years, where we have seen like all this new development and adoption from the tool consumers at least, and that leads to the development of tools. It brings some advantages. Is based on also as 2.0 is based on OAuth 2, but it uses also JWT and OpenID for the launch and the security, and it brings some other extents mightily all the capabilities you can have in the communication between these two applications, and passing data and offering functionality. So that's pretty much how things work. So what we have there, I already mentioned, the elements are called, is two components. The elements is called the tool consumer, and the tool itself is called the tool provider or tool. And in order to have that, well, you need to be LTI compliant in that case. BigBlueButton, though, has a particularity for the same reason I explained before, that didn't have or doesn't have a front-end user interface. You need, in order to get into BigBlueButton, there is need of this intermediate application. There has to be an intermediate application, which is what we call the LTI application. The LTI, that's the broker, is how we call it now, something that is going to be doing the brokerage of LTI and also offering the functionality. More of this will come later, but that's how it is. So essentially what we have is, in the same way that, let's say, Moodle has a plugin, we have this acting as the intermediator or as the bridge between the BigBlueButton and the LMS. We will have an LTI application that will be bridging to connect one application to the other. So the functionality of the click the button, create a meeting, and all those things will be this intermediate application. So the way we did it, which is the way many other tools have done it in the past, we did like a number of other implementations, even for other products. We started back in 2012 with the first implementation for BigBlueButton was the BBB tool that was compliant with LTI 1.0. That application was written in Grails, Groovy on Grails, and Groovy on Rails, but it was a very basic experience. Really basic. It was pretty much the launch. Recordings were added after, but originally it was just launching into BigBlueButton, and that's it. And it was certified. It was certified, that application. Then we developed something else because we needed to extend the experience, and that's a keyword for us now, because that's what it's all about: experiences to the end users. We wanted to extend the experience, and we wrote this connecting application, which yes, it gave us more flexibility in the way we were doing things. It was is written in Ruby on Rails. It's compliant with LTI 1.1.1, which I didn't mention, but it's just 1.1 is 1.1.1 is one extension of 1.1, but it's the same principle of 1.0. In the end, we only launch into BigBlueButton. We don't pass outcomes back. But it was certified. Don't remember if this is one is certified, but is compliant with the standard. And it's still basic, but it can be is also very well improved. It has many enhancements and improvements. The problem with that one is, like as many others, it has always been proprietary license. We never open source that one. All of them were developed by Blindside Networks, by the way. It's just that one stayed like in our commercial offering. And at some point, after several years of using or asking people to use LTI in the way we were providing for open source, we say, yeah, we have to, do better for everybody else and even for ourselves. And we say we're going to write another one that is going to be compliant with all the standards that are available at the time. We're talking about 2080, which is what it was at the time. It was LTI 2.0. So this tool had to be compliant with 2.0. So all the development was done and applied, and actually has been used since then. We have it deployed for some of our customers. We have a mix of applications, and it's been used. It was released as a version finally this year, but it has been actually as an experimental component for the BigBlueButton project since probably 2019. It's just not many people knows it or use it, but it's there. So it's compliant with 1.1 right now, but as I mentioned, it has all the flesh to work in as a 1.2 or 2.0 and even 1.3. It's just that it needs some work and it's in the roadmap to do that work. But right now, as it is, it can be used as 1.1, 1.1 only. Also written Ruby on Rails, and is into the not the latest version. It's not Rails 7, it's Rails 6, but it's more updated as well, and it's an extended experience again. So with that, I'm gonna pass it to Mariam to continue with the walkthrough, the presentation.
All right, thanks, Jesus. So yeah, I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of the app that Jesus described last, the BBB LTI apps. So this is what it's gonna look like in a learning management system. So this one is Brightspace, and you would add an external learning tool. Once that's added, it would be pre-configured, and you can launch into it. And when you launch, you see this room. So now an administrator is able to edit the room. When you edit the room, you can change the name, you can add a description, you can add a welcome message, and this welcome message is going to propagate to the BigBlueButton meeting and it's going to show up there. And you can also change the various settings. So there are log settings, room settings, recording settings. And in here, I'm going to auto start recording. I'm going to select to do that. And the room is updated. You can join the room and it will open the BigBlueButton meeting in a new tab. And the name of the user will also propagate to that meeting as well as any settings that you set. So you can record, you can see that it started recording automatically. And once it's done recording, you will see the recording in the main page. And as the meeting is progressing, as it's in progress, you can see statistics. So you can see how many people are in the room. You can see how long it's been running for. And as the teacher or administrator, you can also end the session from this room. So you can end it from the BigBlueButton meeting itself, or you can end it from the BigBlueButton LTI room. So when you press that, it's all done. And then once the recording is ready, you'll be able to see it in this table. So I'll show you what that looks like. All right, well, you're going to have to take my word for it. So the recordings are going to be shown here, and what you can do is that you can change the name and description of the recording. You can see different playback versions, such as the statistics or presenter. Certain playback options can only be apparent to the teacher, so they can be hidden from students. So you might not want to show the students the statistics of the meeting. You can also publish and change the meeting itself or the recording itself. All right, so now the delivery. So how do you actually get these LTI apps into your learning management system? Well, it's also quite simple. So I'll show you another video. But do you have any idea why when I add another link, it keeps showing the same one? Oh, 1 second. No
That's
way.
interesting. I would just stop sharing and start sharing again. Are you sure it's the a link to a separate video?
I think it's a YouTube thing. All right, let's
We
try
can
this.
Give
do.
me the link
I
and I can
can
just try it.
take presenter, take it again, Mariam, and you share again.
No, it keeps showing the same one.
That's interesting. Do you want to share your desktop instead?
Yeah, I'll do that. All right, are you able to see that?
Yep.
Okay, so as you can see here, you go to the external tool management and you add a link. You can set the title. This is whatever you like it to be. And the URL, which you will be given. So you need three components really. There's the URL that's important, and then there's the key and its secret. So you can add, these will be set when you set up your tools. And then here you give permissions to the tool. So what can the learning management system give to the tool? And I just enabled everything. And once you have that set up, you can go to your course or module or whatever you want, add an existing external tool, and as you saw before, it'll show up. It's as easy as that. All right, and while we're here, I'll show you the recording. So here you can edit the room. This is how it's going to look like. You can search recordings based on the name and the description. These are your playback options. And here, if you click the three ellipses, you can have certain actions like publishing, deleting, and whatnot. All right, so that's the current app that we have. Now I'm going to explain a little bit about the architecture of the app. So as I said earlier, I'm not going to go too much into the details, A, for time, but also because I just want to stick to the important information. So imagine that you want to create an LTI tool. If you want to create an LTI tool, you have to do two things. The first thing is pretty trivial, and it's that you have to implement the functionality that you said you're going to implement. So for example, if for our tool we want it to show recordings and we want to have a button that lets people join a BigBlueButton meeting, then the app should be able to do that. But the second thing that the tool has to be able to do is to implement the actual LTI capabilities. And LTI capabilities include being able to process LTI requests, authenticating with the LTI platform, authorizing access to certain parts of the app based on the user's role. So for example, you don't want the student to be able to delete a recording. And you might want to add other things as well, such as outcome services and grade passing. So that's all nice and well, and this is the basic functionality, but I'm going to present to you a problem. Let's say one day you decide that you want to actually add another application. Maybe that this application will offer the functionality of just viewing recordings and managing them without joining a meeting. So now you have two applications. And then you think, okay, actually, we need another application to enhance the experience of the user. This application is going to be just for one-time meetings, one-time schedules. So now you have three. And in theory, you can keep on creating applications, as many applications as your ideas, as the ideas that you have. But this poses a problem because when you have so many applications, maintaining them is going to be a nightmare and a half. So here's the thing. Yes, with all of these applications, the functionality is different, but they all share the same thing, the LTI capabilities. So what if you only had to implement the LTI capabilities one time? Well, that's actually what we did. So we decoupled the functionality of the app with the LTI capabilities. So as you can see here, we have a tool called the broker and a tool called rooms. The broker holds all the LTI capabilities. So it's going to do all the authentication with the learning management system. It's going to do the authorization. It's going to have all these LTI capabilities that we just discussed. And the Rooms application is simply going to offer the functionality and it's going to have just a little bit of logic to authenticate itself with the broker. And for those technical people that are curious about how it does that, it's basically a custom gem in the Rooms application. And through Doorkeeper and OmniAuth, we can authenticate this app with the broker in a very similar way to how the broker authenticates with the learning management system. And this way, the Rooms application can simply offer the functionality to the learning management system. And it's the actual Rooms app that communicates with the BigBlueButton API. So with this solution, we are able to easily extend the ecosystem of LTI applications because now it's a lot easier to maintain them. And in fact, we have done this. We already added other applications. So this is an application that we wrote very quickly. We call it the lectures application. And it's a very simple application where you can schedule a meeting. And it's a one-time thing. Once that meeting is finished, you can't join the meeting again. So this is what it looks like before. It shows you a message that it's scheduled. After it's done, you'll see the recording, and that's it. Another example is actually one that MConf created. So MConf used the broker application and forked the Rooms application and changed it quite a bit. And now they have their own ELOS application that allows also for scheduling meetings, very customized to their purpose. So how do you install this application? Well, there are two ways to install it. The first way is actually just to use the BigBlueButton install script. And all you have to do is pass in the option -t, the key and the secret that you want. You might want to make it more secure than just key and secret. And then you would go to hostname-LTI and you can get the LTI link from there. This method is not recommended for production. So for production, you probably want to deploy it in a microservices style. And with that, we actually have Docker images on the BigBlueButton Docker Hub account for the broker and for the Rooms app. And if you want some insight and guidance on how to deploy that, Jesus has a repository on his GitHub account called BBBLTI run. And it has the Docker Compose scripts that show you how all the components work together. All right, so now the roadmap. So what can you expect for the future? Well, the first thing we want to do is improve the multi-tenancy of the application. So this is one of those things where we do a lot of work behind the scenes and then the app looks the same, but it's going to allow us to even extend the applications even more. So that's going to be an important step. The other thing is to offer LTI 1.3. So we do have the code and the functionality to do it, but it's disabled at the moment. So we just have to work on enabling that and offering it. And the last thing is to offer a versatile LTI launch. So what this means is that with one set of credentials, just the link, just the key, and just the secret, you're able to choose which application you go into. So maybe you want one application in your course, just the Rooms application. Maybe you want one as the recordings application or the lectures application. With one launch, the first launch will let you choose which one, and then it's easy sailing from there. So those are the three main ones in our roadmap. And the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with are the demo credentials. So this demo environment allows you to play around with the LTI apps that we currently have. The recordings are disabled, of course, but it shows you can maybe add it to your learning management system, see how it works, play around with it and have fun. You can screenshot it or refer to the recording after this. And that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yeah, so Jesus said the credentials are the same that we had shared before for demo when we were offering the old version of the BBA LTI tool, but it will show the new version now.
Yeah, what it changes the endpoint, obviously. We have some adaptation to do that, but we didn't do the portability. There is actually a way to, it's still experimental, but there is a way to, even if you were using the previous tool, you can use the same link, so it doesn't affect the links that you already have in your provision in your LMS, and launch into the new application. Of course, all that magic needs to happen in the BigBlueButton server itself or in the deployment, but the application itself is able to handle different types of endpoints as well. And one thing I wanted to mention as well, as you saw, there are a couple of things that we did, like the implementation of lectures for edX in particular. That's an experience made out for edX only. I mean, it can work in other LMSs, but it was meant to be used by edX. Same as the one that ELOS did is very specific for ELOS. MConf did for ELOS is ELOS specific, right? So the thing is that with this new concept of several tools, we can even decouple the functionality that we offer now in Rooms, like let's say the Rooms and the recordings in separated user interfaces that will give different experiences, and the idea is that those experiences can be tailored for the institution or organization and as is needed.